Hello, I'm Peter Neufeld and part of the HR team here at Maple Leaf, and welcome to the Healthy Mind Speaker Series. Today we're having a repeat guest. So we had Colin DeFrance join us in May, and Colin, I was checking, so 6 months. I had to do a double check to believe that's how long it's been. So time has certainly flown by. But Colin, if you recall, had taught us about mindfulness. And mindfulness has been something that's been a repeated topic that's come up through many of the speakers that we've had over the weeks and over the months. And today what Colin's going to do is he's going to give us a refresher. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go a bit deeper. And then today I'm really pleased we're going to go into a practice. So with that, Colin, welcome. Before we jump in, how has the mindfulness practice been over the last 6 months? I imagine there's been a lot of demand for calm in the chaos.
Well, thanks, Peter, for the intro and certainly for allowing me the opportunity to continue with the Healthy Mind series and presenting this part 2 of our workshop. Sorry, can you hear me okay there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh, we got a thumbs up? Okay, great. I was just getting a bit of an echo. Yeah, activity has really picked up in the last while. We're getting a lot more inquiries now for these types of workshops and communities of practice where people are taking a little more active role in actually doing the work as opposed to just learning about it. So again, I'm excited to be back and looking forward to the opportunity here to share a little more with everyone at Maple Leaf who's joining us here today.
Great to have you.
Okay, so trusting we can kick it off now. So for today's session, again, we're going to get things started. Actually, you can just go back to the other slide for a moment. Just a quick review. We're going to talk a little bit more again about what mindfulness is and its relevance to current times. And then we're going to try a few simple yet powerful practices that you can take away and do on your own. And as Peter mentioned, finally, we're going to wrap things up with a little bit of time left for some Q&A at the end of the presentation. So next slide. This past year has really been nothing short of extraordinary. And as the world population nears 8 billion people, which is more than double what it was only 50 years ago, we find that as a human species, we are now faced with growing health, environmental, and social and economic challenges like never before. And starting with this COVID lockdown that we experienced back in March, we're now in the midst of a second wave. It's proving to be worse than the first one. We've all been impacted in some way. And for many of us, each day is bringing with it an increased pressure, worry, anxiety, and some degree of stress that we're all dealing with. Next slide. So from our previous workshop, we learned that mindfulness can be simply defined as being present. Or for more technical definition, next, there's an individual by the name of Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was the person responsible for bringing mindfulness into mainstream medicine back in the early 80s. Now, he defines it as an awareness that comes from paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. Kabat-Zinn's efforts, combined with a large body of research spanning several decades, has shown definitively that mindfulness has all kinds of health benefits, including improved focus, mental clarity, emotional resilience, lower stress, and a greater sense of joy and well-being. So, next slide, what do we mean then by being present, and why does this even matter? Well, the research suggests that we're only engaged in the present moment about 50% of the time. And although our bodies are physically in the present, our minds typically are not. We're busy either thinking about something that's already happened, or our attention is fixed on some event that we believe will happen. Now, this is okay when you do it with awareness, but the trouble is, many people will consciously dwell on the past, which can lead to depression, or endlessly worry about the future, which can lead to chronic anxiety. So, next slide. Where we tend to place our attention ultimately affects the quality of our experience of life itself. And next, looking at it one way, when we experience emotions like loss, hate, anger, shame, regret, sadness, jealousy, loneliness, and depression, our attention is rooted in the past. Similarly, next slide, feelings of fear, greed, worry, anxiety, longing, frustration, impatience, intolerance, and dissatisfaction, these are all the byproduct of an attention that is fixed on the future. Now, by contrast, final one in this slide, feelings of joy, bliss, patience, compassion, peacefulness, contentment, equanimity, gratitude, and love, these all become more available to us when our attention is on the present. And so it follows that techniques such as mindfulness that can help shift our attention away from the past and the future to become more focused on the present is something that is certainly worth exploring. Next slide. So when you think about it, life only exists in the present moment. So to truly experience the richness of life in all its color and complexity, we need to retrain our mind to pay more attention to what's happening here and now. So next slide, let's use this moment as an example. Where are your thoughts? How many of you are still thinking about what you were doing just prior to this call? Or perhaps you're thinking about something you need to do later on. The point is that the mind can and does quickly wander. And this is okay. It's a natural and normal thing. The mind wanders, that's what it does. And mindfulness is simply a tool that can be used to help you stay on track and be more focused in the moment. Next slide. Now, here are a few images of some of the things that might sweep our attention off of the present moment and onto a subconscious roller coaster of memory and imagination, like getting cut off in traffic, the ongoing news about the pandemic, difficulties at work, perhaps with a colleague, or challenges of having to work from home all the time. Any of these situations and many others can quickly take our minds elsewhere and lead us to experience difficult emotions. The good news is that there are many simple techniques that we can use to help manage these difficult thoughts and emotions. Next slide, please. So the first one we touched on in the last session we did, and it's bringing one's attention to the simple act of breathing. It sounds like an oversimplification here, but the truth is that the breath is our fundamental connection to life itself. The first thing we do when we're born is we inhale. The last thing we do when we die is exhale. And every breath that happens in between defines our experience of life. The breath, by its very nature, only exists in the present moment. And so it follows that by bringing attention to the breath, we can more easily tune into what's happening here and now. And for this reason, breath awareness has always been a key aspect of many mindfulness and yogic practices. And in a sense, you can think of the breath as your anchor to the present moment. Now, a mindful breath is a type of focused attention practice, which can be as simple as taking a long, slow inhale and exhale, paying attention to the sensations as you breathe. So let's try this together. I want you to sit comfortably, if you're not already comfortable, and just start by closing your eyes. And now take a long, slow inhale through the nose, followed by a longer, slower exhale through the nose. And notice how the body relaxes as you do this. If you like, you can even place one hand on your belly and the other on your chest to bring even more awareness to the breath. And repeat this a couple more times on your own. Try to notice the sensations as you breathe and how the body relaxes more deeply with each exhale. Long, slow inhales through the nose, followed by longer, slower exhales through the nose. Whenever you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and return your awareness to the screen. So trusting that everyone should feel just a little bit more relaxed in this moment. This is an example of a simple mindful breath practice that can be done anywhere and anytime you need it. Next slide. So there are many other practices that build on the power of the breath. Now, the stop practice is one that can be used in the moment you begin experiencing very strong negative emotions. The S simply stands for stop. So whenever you feel emotionally triggered, first just stop. Don't react. For just one moment, press pause. And if you can do this one step, you're most of the way there because you've consciously interrupted the thought pattern that can lead to sustained, strong negative emotions. The T stands for take a breath. Pretty straightforward. You already know how to do that. And sometimes it's referred to as a sacred pause. Taking a breath also helps to emphasize that first step of just stopping. The O stands for observe. You observe your experience just as it is without any judgment. Take time to notice where your thoughts have gone. Notice any emotions that are present and how they're being expressed in your body. And perhaps you can even consider others that may be involved in the situation that has resulted in you being triggered and think about their needs as well. The P stands for proceed. And this involves bringing to mind the ways in which you might respond that would lead to a more positive outcome both for yourself and others. Seems like a lot, but even if you do just these first two steps, stopping and taking a breath, you can vastly improve your ability to self-regulate through difficult times. Next slide. So another approach I like to use in this example is simply to ask myself a question. What would it feel like if I didn't react in this situation? Like the example of getting cut off in traffic and how we all tend to get our backs up. How would my experience improve? And when I ask this question, usually I find a slight smile making its way onto my face, and any negative emotions I may be experiencing at the time quickly begin to dissolve. So that's just another way that you can tackle in the moment situations where you're feeling emotionally triggered. Next slide, please. Now, one of the other things that's important to know about your brain is that it comes pre-programmed with a negativity bias. And this negativity bias is trained to keep us alive and always on the lookout for threats in the environment. And these are the kinds of things that for our ancestors used to look like lions, tigers, bears, threats in the environment. Today, it may look like any number of things, including news about COVID-19. Now, what we have to remember is that we can intentionally counter this negativity bias by taking the time to notice the good stuff. And contrary to what our mind may be telling us, there's actually a lot of it, a lot more of it out there. And the simple practice of noticing the good is one that you can use anywhere throughout the day. And I promise, if you intentionally start looking at all the good stuff in your life, you will instantly start to experience a greater sense of well-being. Next slide. So this is another practice you can try. It's called the acceptance practice. You may recall this from the first time round. And when you find yourself dwelling on a negative experience that's beyond your control, you can repeat these 10 simple words. I do my best. I let go of the rest. Now, rather than ruminating about the past, you can mentally repeat these words and remember that we're all human. We're trying to do our best in very challenging times, and that's truly more than enough. And there's never any sense in beating yourself up over something that is simply now history. So I do my best. I let go of the rest. It's a mantra that I encourage you to use often. So these are a few simple but effective mindfulness practices that you can use in the moment whenever you feel you need them. Now, in order to take your mindfulness practice to a personal level, take it a little deeper, we'll go to the next slide. There are something called dedicated practices that typically are done at a given time throughout the day or during the day, morning or evening. And the practice that we're all going to try here together builds on that simple breath practice that we just did. The body, in the case of the body scan, only exists in the present moment, just as the breath only exists in the present moment. And so again, by bringing our attention to what's happening in the body, we can become more grounded in the here and now. So let's try this one together. Once again, I'm going to invite everyone to just sit comfortably in your chair. Notice your posture. Sit upright and alert, and if you're leaning, I suggest that you just sit up and try not to lean into the back of the chair, but remain comfortable as you do. And I'll invite you to gently close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the breath. Just noticing the sensations as you inhale and as you exhale. And keeping your mind, or your breath rather, in the peripheral vision of your mind. Just inhale deeply and bring your awareness down to your feet. Simply noticing the contact that the soles of your feet make with the floor. And if they're sitting in shoes, even perhaps wiggling your toes to emphasize that connection with awareness of your feet. And on your next inhale, I'd invite you to draw your awareness now up to your ankles. See what you can notice. Simply keeping your awareness at this part of the body, the ankles. Inhaling once again, bring your awareness now up to the calf muscles. What can you sense here? Perhaps sensing the weight of these muscles surrounding the lower bones of the leg. Perhaps feeling your pants touching the skin of your leg. Inhaling once again, now draw your awareness up to the knees and the kneecaps. See if you can sense the knee joint, the bones that make up the knee. Simply noticing whatever comes to mind, or perhaps not coming to mind. Inhaling once again, now bring the awareness up to the thighs, to the large bones, the femur bones, and the muscles that surround them, the quadriceps and biceps femoris. What can you notice in the area of the thighs? Perhaps noticing the contact they make with the chair as you're sitting. On your next inhale, now draw your awareness to the hips and to the sit bones. Noticing the contact that you make with the seat, what it feels like to be simply sitting in your chair at this moment. Inhaling once again, bring your awareness now up to the abdomen. Perhaps placing your hand once again on your belly. Drawing the awareness to the movement of the belly as you breathe. Perhaps sensing the internal organs. Maybe even some growling in the stomach. If you haven't had lunch or you're contemplating lunch, what can you notice in the area of the abdomen? And drawing your attention now around to the lower back, an area that can carry a considerable amount of stress as we sit and walk all day long. Considerable amount of tension, and certainly an area that deserves our awareness. And a little TLC. Inhaling once again, draw your awareness now up to the chest, to the sternum, the ribs around the side of the upper body, to the upper back and the shoulders. What sensations can you notice in the torso? Inhaling once again, bring your awareness to your arms. Perhaps resting on your knees or in your lap. Perhaps feeling the sensation once again, the clothing on your skin. And bringing your awareness now to the wrists, the palms, and the fingers. What can you sense here or not? Inhaling once again, draw your awareness now up to the neck. Another area that can carry a considerable amount of tension as we sit in front of computers all day long. And draw your awareness up to the face, to the jaw, the mouth and lips, to the tongue. Draw your awareness to the cheeks, eyes, and eyelids, to the nose. Perhaps sensing the coolness of the air as you inhale and the warmth of the air as it exits through the nose. And draw your awareness now to the top of the head, to the scalp. And now simply rest your awareness once again on the sensations of the breath. Simply noticing the inhales and the exhales, allowing the breath to find its natural rhythm. And rest in awareness on the breath for just a moment longer. And finally, taking one more long, slow inhale through the nose, and a longer, slower exhale through the nose. Whenever you're ready, you can gently open your eyes and bring your awareness back to the room. So this is an example of a dedicated practice called a body scan. It took a little over 5 minutes for us to do this one. There's a longer version of it on my website and on YouTube, which runs about 10 minutes. And again, it's the kind of thing that you can do when you wake up in the morning, or perhaps at a fixed time before you go to bed. Can even help with falling asleep if you have difficulty sleeping. And these dedicated practices, in combination with in the moment practices, can go a considerable way towards building a personal practice that will allow you to more effectively manage your thoughts and emotions in good times, bad, and otherwise. So we'll close there as far as the presentation, and we'll open it up now to the group. And if there are any questions that anyone might have, either about what we've experienced today or any other things relating to this topic, feel free to share.
Thanks so much, Colin. I know I can say I enjoyed that. It was a real feeling of quiet, and we often don't give ourselves that. A reminder, folks, in terms of questions, just click on the link, and we'd be happy to get to as many of the questions as we can. As we wait for the questions to come, Colin, you are very specific in terms of the word practice, and you're talking about a mindfulness practice. Can you tell me a bit more about why that word?
Well, it's like the word, basically implies. You're never better. You're never perfect at it, and there is no perfect. You're always trying your best. You're always trying to bring your awareness more to the present moment. for anyone, unless you happen to be an enlightened being, of which there are very few on this planet, you're never perfectly in the moment at all times. Your mind is always drifting. So we're always challenged by bringing it back, recognizing that, okay, my mind is drifted, my thoughts are drifted, I'm feeling emotionally triggered. I'm going to bring my awareness to that thought and that fact, and I'm going to do a few of these little tips and tricks that I know can help me to get more grounded and reset. So in that sense, we're continually practicing, and life really is an opportunity to practice. So that's why we use the term.
That's awesome. So there's a question here. I've noticed that when I do any type of meditation or mindfulness practices, I yawn multiple times during the sessions. Do you have any read on what this indicates?
Yeah, number one, it may sound like a statement of the obvious, but it means you're tired, perhaps bored, or your body is showing signs that you need to energize, or you're just feeling fatigue. The interesting thing about the breath is it does work two ways, and there are two components to it. There's an inhale and there's an exhale. And the inhale is energizing. If you really break it down and analyze your breath and pay real close attention to it, you'll find that when you emphasize the inhale, it energizes your body. So if you take a longer inhale and really not hold it, but really just, draw on it for a little while longer, and a shorter exhale, this will energize your body. Conversely, if you emphasize the exhale, and that's why, as we just did that little guided practice, I suggested a longer, slower exhale. The intent there is you're trying to relieve stress, so you're trying to relax the body, you're trying to relax the mind. And this is the role of the exhale, and it's what the exhale will do for you, and you will find works for you if you pay attention to it. So by sort of emphasizing one side or the other of the breath, we can either energize the body or relax the body. And when you find that you're yawning, it just means that you're fatigued, and perhaps you need to emphasize the inhales a little bit more. It's something you can try on your own.
So one thing that was different in terms of the meditation that you led us through, or the mindfulness exercise you led us through, was you had us breathe in through our nose and then exhale through our nose.
Yep.
I know sometimes people say exhale through the mouth. Can you comment on that?
Yep. There are, as I alluded to earlier, there are many different types of practices and variations on them. And again, this is the kind of thing where you have to play with them. There are other practices, one called the straw breathing, which basically you inhale through the nose and you exhale through pursed lips. And again, this is just another way of emphasizing the exhale. And for some people, they relate to it a little bit more, and it works for them a little better as far as relaxing the body. For me personally, I find there's a little tension when I purse my lips, and it doesn't help me to relax as much, but that's just me. So again, you have to try these things, and there are many other ways. There's box breathing, as well as the straw breathing and the simple exercise we just did, and many, many more that you can find either by, Googling or doing other work through other individuals who practice mindfulness.
So we'll probably have time for one more question. Love the body scan practice. What's the difference between meditation and mindfulness?
Okay, this is something, it's an excellent question actually, and it's something that typically in Western society, we've taken the word meditation and it's a verb. We use it to say that this is me sitting down, cross-legged with my hands in yoga mudra and my eyes closed, and I'm meditating. And it is used conventionally in that way. But meditation actually is a state of mind. If you take it back to its roots in classical yoga, for example, meditation is a state of mind where the mind is completely calm. And in essence, you are 100% present. You're not looking to the future or the past. And the mind is as calm as an analogy I always like to use is taking my hand and just resting it on my lap. When I want to use it, I can activate my mind in a state of meditation, from a state of meditation, which is sometimes yogis call it no mind. But when I don't want to use it, it's there, like the hand. and you can call upon it as you need to. And that's ultimate control of the mind. And that is one definition, a classical definition of meditation, which I tend to use, versus the conventional Western definition, which is it's an action that we take when we sit and we practice. So I rather use the word practice, that word coming in again, as opposed to mindfulness meditation. But then again, that's just me.
So folks, unfortunately, we're out of time, but we will share. Colin has put together some really helpful resources, and I encourage you to take a look at them. There's a wealth of information here, and as he said, it's an opportunity to practice. So this isn't something that we get right away, but it's something that we can come better at and find the benefits from over time. As we end today, I'd also like to mention that we're going to try something new next week. But want you to know that what we're going to start next week is some fitness classes, and they will be drop-ins. So look for more information coming soon on that. And it'll be a complete live experience with no presentation. And as Colin has said, it'll be a no judgment zone. So the only judge will be yourself, and we hope you will be kind on yourself. Colin, thank you so much for being with us again today. It's greatly appreciated, and I wish you well. And everyone, I wish you a great day. Thank you for joining.
Thanks again. All the best to everybody.
Ciao.